Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the May ECEAP Coach webinar for coaches supporting ECEAP-funded classrooms. We are so glad that you're able to join us today and look forward to hearing from you during today's webinar. We have a great discussion planned and hope you all can participate. Just a few housekeeping things before we get moving today. Please make sure that you have yourself muted. And if you are using your computer microphone and speakers, please be sure to mute your microphone. This reduces the background noise so that everyone can hear. As we move through the slides today, please type your questions into the question box and we will respond to questions as appropriate during the webinar and as they relate to the topic being shared. There will be time at the end for additional questions, and if at any time we are unable to answer your question during the webinar, we will follow up with you individually at a later date. So this is Kelly DeBoer, and I'm a pre-K specialist with the Department of Early Learning. And on the line with me today
is Karen Gans. Hi everybody, I'm the Program Collaboration and Operations Manager with the ECEAP team.
So today, we're going to start with an opening question. It will look familiar. We sent it out with our email invite to the webinar today, so we're going to start with a poll. We will follow that with a discussion and hear from coaches about the topics. We will go through a summary of the year and then what's in store for next year, and then we'll take questions and answers. So let's move forward with the poll. So what we'd like to know is where has your biggest challenges been this year? So it looks like, can you all see those results? And it looks like everybody's muted on this end, so I can't do anything to fix it. So back to the poll, it looks like about 26% of you said you experienced some challenges in preparing sites for data collection this year. 37% of you were challenged by finding ways to continue the quality improvement process post-rating. About 5% were challenged in moving through remedial activities, and about 32% had some other different kinds of challenges. And we did hear from a few coaches about some specific challenges, and they're going to share today. But please, for those of you that didn't email in a response, if you're interested in sharing some of the challenges you faced this year, please type them into the question box. We'd love to include you in the discussion. You are now unmuted, Emily. If you would like to share some of the challenges you faced this year and some of the things you did to problem solve and move through those issues.
Yeah, so I think I always like to start with the fact that I'm in a little bit of a different role. I have quite a bit of administration and some access and some resources that I know are not available to everybody. One of the things that I had discussed previously that you reminded me of was moving towards professional learning communities, and I think that's the thing that I wanted to share as being the most successful. I just know from experience, from education, that teachers learn best from other teachers, and it's also really hard to get commitment from teachers to take time away to spend time with teachers. But we were really able to bring them together in a way that created some teacher leaders. So one of the examples that I have is that we have taken the initiative with the new all the new ideas and materials around math, and we got the teachers the counting and cardinality training first, and we were able to purchase some of the math materials that were suggested as well as make some of our own and create these kits for all of the individual classrooms. What we know about those materials, however, is that they often get given to teachers and then they sit in the back in the corner and they gather dust, or they use one or two things and the rest of them sit there. So the first part of our professional learning community is that we split up the kit between teachers, and they are currently in the process of testing out some of the materials. So for example, we sent the Hop to It number line and then the 6 and 12 number line with dice to one teacher who has a worksheet she's filling out. What did she do with the materials? What times did she use them? What different activities did she use? What worked? What didn't work? And then on the 19th, she's coming back along with 4 other colleagues, and they'll be presenting to each other what they did. And so by the time that each team walks out with their whole kit, they will have experience with part of it, but also some real hands-on knowledge from other teachers that they can use. They can walk away with a handout with those materials, and so they really have already built a learning community. And then we have changed our training so that teachers will get training in the morning. They do get training in the morning, and then they really get to meet with each other in the afternoon. And that is not dictated. So we're not forcing them to talk about certain things. We're not telling them that they have remedial areas and they need to focus on with other people on the remedial areas that they also share. It's really for them to identify with the group who has similar things they want to work on. And in my experience, teachers generally go to things that that they do need to work on, and they're also interested, and that alleviates that whole conversation around, okay, we need to focus on this because it's not really working. So the next time I go to coach them, I can say, I noticed that you chose this group. What are some areas within this group that you'd like me to support you in doing, in achieving, in adding more, what have you. The other thing that I mentioned when I initially gave you the information is really just about, I think I called coaching therapy first, just really understanding that in order to get teachers to move forward, oftentimes we have to step back and figure out what the issue is. And often the issue is we don't have a relationship yet. The teachers don't trust us. They don't, and it could be for a variety of reasons that don't have anything to do with us. But regardless, one of the metaphors that I use is when we're talking about moving children, if you want to get a child from one area to another, if you gently guide them, then that's fine if they go with you, which is what you want to do with teachers. But if they start giving you a little bit of pushback, then that's your cue to stand up and look around and see if there's another option. So when I get a little bit of pushback or it feels a little bit challenging, my first reaction is not, how do I continue to hammer through this boulder that they've put in the way? It's to take a step back, take a breath, and go back to relationship building. Letting go that that's the way that I wanted it to go, and understand that it's really, I'm typically wrong about those things. If I think I know the way a teacher needs to get from point A to point B, usually I don't have all the information about that teacher, and if I sit back and listen and let them guide the conversation, they'll get there in a way that I didn't even expect. I also really like to get them, give them as many choices as possible, and I think we do these things with children, and they work just as well with adults. And so providing them with the content of the conversation and allowing them to guide the conversation has really been the most beneficial. And there are a lot of tools in the Coaching Companion that allow for that. If it's not supernatural, not supernatural, I shouldn't say that. If it's not natural for you to do that, there's one where you can list the things that went well in Ecker's or class and things that were a little bit lower, and they get to kind of pick and guide that conversation. So there are a lot of good materials in the Coaching Companion that I think it's important for us to go back and visit that. I think that's what I got for right now.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Emily. Really appreciate you sharing.
And this is Karen. Hi, Emily. I wanted to just ask I wanted to ask a couple questions just for everyone who's listening in. So you're supporting teachers in a part-day model, or are there some other funding models who are part of this train that you've set up in these supports?
We have a part-day model. However, it looks different at almost all of the sites that I work with. So I have 5 direct service sites that have morning and afternoon kind of scattered classes, and I have 4 that are actually out in school districts. So we have ECEAP slots within school district certified teachers, and then actually we do have some full day slots in our lab school. So we do have 3 classrooms at our lab school. So they're kind of all over.
So, right, and so kind of what I'm going for is, how is it that, what's your training schedule that you have that allows you to have teachers to have a whole day? Because for some programs, that's going to feel like a barrier. So what's the schedule that you've set up for an all day, training where there's some training time and then reflection time?
Planning in advance. I mean, that's really, this year we are working on next year's calendar, and I've met with, I think, every teacher. I had one that didn't want to meet. She just said, well, I'll do what everyone else does. And we talked about what they wanted. We talked about what was meaningful for them. And we have next year's calendar planned now. And I really don't think there's any other way that you can do it to get support from administration, especially if you're looking at the number of hours for ECEAP that you need to meet.
Okay.
But
then the way that you've set the schedule up, do you have monthly training or is it weekly training? What is you?
With the professional learning communities, we have, it works out to be about 5 times a school year that they physically get together. And then within that, they work with each other about visiting classrooms. So they would pair with, what I've seen work the best is when, and teachers really self-select that they pair with someone who has an alternate schedule from them. So they might teach in the morning and have some planning time in the afternoon one day. They would go visit a classroom that's teaching in the afternoon to get some ideas. So they are responsible for their own continued education, continued relationships with these other teachers in between that time.
Okay. So it's just good to know that you have, that in the training schedule that you've created, there are 5 times a year where there's time set aside on the calendar for teachers to participate in these professional learning communities around a specific topic, and then they have additional time that's available as they schedule that fits into their schedule.
Yes, and it is also helpful that as a trainer, whenever we meet, they also get their hours. So that's motivation for them to show up as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Emily.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Emily. So we also have Esther on the line. Esther, I'm going to unmute you now, and you can share some of the challenges that you have experienced and how you've moved through them. So Esther, you're unmuted.
Okay, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, thank you for the opportunity of sharing. I thoroughly believe that we all encounter the challenges, but this has been one of mine where we have been rating, and we rated at a 4, and so the next step is trying to make the teachers understand that by providing and creating the opportunities for children to experience and experiment, explore, and the language communication going every day, and being intentional to while talking to the children is very effective. And I see that teachers are more concerned about, well, want to be the re-rating is going to come about next year, and how do we get to a 5? And I try to tell the teachers, you know what, let's concentrate and work on this language development, providing these great opportunities for children. And by doing this, the rating of the next time when the evaluators come to the sites is going to happen very natural. If you implement all this open-ended questions, concept development, expanding and giving the children opportunities to really think about their questions and answers, is going to kind of, come, the rating of a 5 or whatever is going to come very easily. We are working towards the creating the path to getting a great rating, instead of teachers contributing, well, how do I get to a 5? And it's just telling the teachers, please, let's do these activities. Let's plan on how can we improve language communication. How can we improve concept development? How can we get the children to have more meaningful experiences? And then don't worry about rating a 5. By creating these opportunities for children, once the evaluator come into the classroom, it's going to happen, right there and then. So it's kind of my challenge, just trying to change their mind of, don't think about rating a 5. Let's think about providing these opportunities, providing this engagement with the children when they're at the different areas, and providing, like I said, those intentional conversations with children.
So Esther, this is Kelly. So it sounds like really helping teachers shift their thinking from focusing on the rating to focusing on the steps they can work on with the children have really been your focus and have been helpful in working with the staff.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes. So we are at the point where teachers now understand, okay, let's forget about the rating. Let's concentrate on improving these areas of services for the children.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Karen, do you have any follow-up questions?
Yeah, this is Karen, and I just wanted to say I really appreciate you sharing that, because that's really what the goal is, right? The goal is not a number. I mean,
correct.
We know that the way the system has been set up, everyone who's in ECEAP has to rate a 4 or 5, which, really we acknowledge that increases, stress for staff in the field, and really it's not about the numbers. Really, the Early Achievers system was created to create a system that ensures that there's continuous quality improvement that's happening. So it's so great that you're working with your staff to help them be able to focus on quality and what quality looks like, and the pieces that they care the most about focusing on.
Correct.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Esther. So we also have Jill on the line. Jill, I'm going to unmute you now so you can share some of your challenges from the year and things you've done to move through those. So you are now unmuted.
Okay, thank you for letting me share. One of the challenges that I've had this year is really, and I'm sure most coaches have had this challenge, is teachers that are resistant to changing practice. This has been a really tough one for me over the years, and Emily was discussing that a little bit about just taking a step back and trying to figure out the issue. And I've had success. I've had particular success this year with some teachers who have been really resistant in changing. We've experienced re-rating this year, and we had one teacher in particular that was really struggling with changing her environment. And so what I ended up doing is just really, a lot of times we'll tell teachers, well, we have to do it this way, or, we have to use this curriculum, it's research-based. And sometimes just explaining that something is research-based is not enough to get buy-in. So I've had to really work on getting better at articulating why that change creates quality, And I've had to dig into that a little bit, as well as show teachers that, what are children getting in the classroom when we do things that way? And when we do things in equality, what are they learning? And I found that to be particularly effective because all teachers in our program want children to be learning. So with our teacher that was having a struggle changing her environment, I picked actually just one of her centers in her classroom, her art center, and we looked at it and we looked at how Eckers would want that to be done, how early achievers would want that to be set at. And then we talked about all the things children would learn as they're putting away their art supplies. They could be learning one-to-one correspondence, for example, as they put this here, or they could be learning how to sort out the colors as they're putting their markers away. And this teacher, a light bulb went on for her, and she was just like, wow, she ended up making a whole lot of really positive changes. But I had to kind of dig into it a little bit and figure out really what are children learning, and I was just thinking it would be helpful for coaches to have more information, along those lines.
Yeah, this is Karen. Thanks so much for sharing. It's those staff that need to know the why behind something. I would be one of those classroom teachers, well, why? Why does someone say that this is better? And then having you break it down so that there's really that concrete information. I really like the idea of us, working together to share more information about what the tasks are and the skills are that children learn by implementing each of those activities in either the class or the Eckers. And so, that's something that we can maybe think about focusing on for next year.
Yes, thank you. I think so too.
Thanks
I think
for
it's
sharing.
Really helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add. I'm just really appreciative of everyone who sent information in and is willing to share. Kelly, I'm wondering if we maybe wouldn't want to look at the questions that came in, or I'm sorry, not the questions. They're in the question box, but the additional challenges that folks talked about.
Yes, I see them here. Thank you for the reminder. So, Angelica sent in a response that shared a similar struggle to what both Jill and Emily have talked about here, is relationship building with a long-term teacher who sees the coach as a threat and not sure why, but working through those challenges and really focusing on building that relationship, which can feel awkward at times through some conversations. And so one of the things that Angelica shared that she did for herself is she is now enrolled and accepted into the UW Coaching Certificate Program, and she's using that opportunity to strengthen her skills in this area. So if you want to type in, Angelica, anything additional that you wanted to add? So Deborah, it looks like you had some challenges as well. I'm going to unmute you.
Oh, hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
So did you want me to speak a little bit to the challenges that I typed in, or?
Yes, just talk about some of the things that you were challenged by this year.
Yeah, it's been a very busy year, and we've been short-staffed in many of our classrooms, and we've had staff turnover, and it just seems like the work is big when you've got a new team, and then when you start that work and then there's staff turnover and it just feels like you're starting over, and just finding time to actually sit and do the depth of work with staff, because everybody's so busy. New staff are trying to learn all these systems and meet deadlines and get their TF Gold figured out and inputted. So it's just like, it feels like it's another to-do list as far as trying to fit it in, and then that, of course, that takes away from the richness and the value of the work and what the work's intended to be. So that's been my biggest frustration. And then I also am still in a position where I take on other kind of, like, I like to respond to it as other duties as assigned. So I've been subbing in a supervisor role too. So it's just exhausting to try to balance it all and to keep up with it all. And then if I do get behind in entering things into Wells, or if I'm not able to attend the webinars, then I get a certain level of anxiety about that. So it's just been kind of what I've been balancing this year.
Thank you, Deborah. So it sounds like time and being spread pretty thin has been challenging as you're dealing with some staff turnover issues and wearing multiple hats.
Yeah, and being the only dedicated coach for the agency. And I think maybe part of my other duties as assigned, I also have the grantee contractor tab, and sometimes just getting in and maintaining, like right now I've been working on ensuring that all of the staff qualifications for the ECEAP roles are in and accounted for, and it's just, it's a lot of time to follow up with everybody. And so just the multiple duties and the multiple roles and keeping up with all of the facets of it and making sure that you're entering in a timely manner. And if you're not entering in a timely manner, then what's the plan to get that caught up? And sometimes when I think I've got time to get it caught up, it's after 5 o'clock and then Merit's updating.
That does happen.
It does happen. Anyway, yeah. So hopefully moving forward next year, there will be a few less duties as assigned and a whole lot more coaching going on.
Okay.
Hey, Deborah, it's Karen. I'm wondering, have you been able to access and use the supports in Coaching Companion that much this year?
I have not been in Coaching Companion, and I'm interested in what's in Coaching Companion, and I know that there are resources in there. I think I have, I have a lot of the templates and things already that I've just downloaded that I have in a binder. I'm also doing the University of Washington coaching certificate, so we have another Coaching Companion that we're working in, and then with Head Start, coaching is a mandate now, and Head Start has their own Coaching Companion, so I'm getting my Coaching Companions confused, I think. But I do like the one that University of Washington has offered up. I just haven't had a chance to really explore it.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure that the one that's through the coaching certificate is provided through SQL, just like the one for ECEAP is. So they may be different.
Yeah, it's different. The one that we're using for our course is a different format. Anyway, it's just a different
I'm just saying that I think it's created by the same people. So
yeah, it is. It's pretty cool.
They're separate systems, but so hopefully there'll be a lot of crossover between the two, because there really are a lot of video supports where staff can send you videos of classroom and then you can review it, and those can be really big time savers.
For the coaching, yeah, that would be great.
For coaches, yep. That you get videos sent to you, you provide feedback, and it's all done online, so you don't have to travel. We know, of course, there's things that you miss by not being on site, but when you're just not able to be on site, it's something that can really help so that you still are in contact with staff when schedules are tight or when there are staffing shortages.
That's good to know. Yeah, I'm going to look into using videotaping a little bit more. I know that my agency right now is looking at new policies and procedures around videotaping in the classroom and what's allowable to be videotaped and how to use the videotape, and increasing the parental parameters around permissions for that. So hopefully what they create doesn't turn into barriers to doing the videotaping for the coach work. If you guys had any support with that would be great.
Yeah, I would really encourage the director, that's Carol, right, at ECEAP. I would encourage her to reach out to the pre-K specialist that supports her, and the pre-K specialist can hook her up with other contractors who've already created those, who do all kinds of videotaping. So
that would be good. The conversation we were having yesterday made me think that there were going to be barriers to even do the videotaping for my homework assignments for the certificate program. So I think I do have a success I want to share. One of our teams got in on that pilot program for the STEAM trunks, so they got accepted to participate in that. So that's kind of cool. they signed up for it.
So for people on the line who don't know what that is, could you let them know, Deborah?
It was something that was presented to us at the summer coaching institute that we went to up in Tacoma, and there's the STEAM trunks are kits that are designed to support the science, technology, engineering, and math. And I think that they are through the Coaching Companion. They're a resource that you can like check out, and they send you this fabulous kit with ideas. There's materials and there's ideas as to how to utilize the materials in your classroom. And then as part of the pilot program, the teachers are being asked to create lesson plans embedding those materials and ideas, and then send in some videotaping and some reflective feedback about how the kit helped enhance their curriculum and help the children with concept development skills. So I think it's pretty
great.
cool.
Well, it'll be great when you've implemented them to share back what the successes are and what some of the resources are for other people, for other coaches around the state to access as well. Thanks for sharing.
Pretty excited about that, actually, for them anyway. They're excited.
Well, it looks like Emily has a comment. I'm gonna mute you, Deborah, and I'm gonna unmute Emily and let her share her comment. I believe it's in response to some of the things you were saying. So just a moment. Okay, Emily.
Okay, hi, Deborah. It actually seems like you have a similar role to mine, more so than others. And one of the things that I have found beneficial is when teachers feel really overwhelmed, that I do go back to just sitting and listening, because again, I can't get past that. And then I'll ask, what do you feel like is your biggest challenge, or what are your biggest challenges? And then in that, find some really small way that I can take something off their plate that's pretty minimal to me, but feels like I'm supporting them. And so some of the examples that I wrote down were, I've entered a round of home visits into Elms, just the time, which I can do, you know, you do it on your 10 key kind of on the side while you're doing something else. I've made copies of things. I've delivered materials to outlying sites. Something that's really no skin off my nose, but that makes a really big impact in saying, I'm here to support you to get to a place that you feel like you have a team. And then the next conversation I have, I follow up on that, and then it seems like it gives me a little bit of an inroad to start talking about moving forward.
Thanks, Emily. I'm going to unmute Deborah again just in case she has any follow-up comments. So Deborah, you're unmuted.
Okay, so I had hit my mute button, so I wasn't sure if I was muted on my end. Yeah, no, I agree with what Emily said. It is, you know, when you're working with teams, just trying to be thoughtful in how you can enhance and support their work, as opposed to just feeling like a dreaded to-do list coming in the door. And building that relationship with them so that they understand that it's a you know, like a reciprocity team situation. But that also, you know, that takes time too. And so it's just, I wish I had two of me. And maybe, you know, if I don't have two of me, at least have an additional coach at some point. So it would be really nice if there were additional funding that would come available, or if my agency would figure out a way to fund another coach position.
Thank you, Deborah.
You know, finding somebody else that could take on the role of the grantee contractor tab would be helpful for me.
So Holly, I saw that you had a comment. I'm going to unmute you so that you can share. You are unmuted.
So yeah, I just, when I'm looking at the, oh, I've got a weird background. Is that better?
That's better, yes.
Okay, so when in trying to follow the practice-based coaching model, if I'm out doing a strength-based observation, it's challenging to figure out how to address things that I see during that strength-based observation that really need to change. And clearly, if it were a major, you know, a super concern, it would be easy to address. If I'm doing a debrief fairly quickly after the observation, I always just ask, you know, what did they think of the day, and that sometimes brings it out without me having to bring it up. But I'm wondering if people have ideas about bringing up some of those concerns when you're trying to focus on being strength-based.
So this is Karen, and I just would ask if anyone has suggestions to just type it in the question box so that Kelly DeBoer knows to unmute you so that you can share some of those ideas right now with Holly.
Not seeing anything yet, but we'll continue to monitor for responses there. We do have, Cheryl has some challenges she's faced too. So Cheryl, I'm going to unmute you.
I raised my hand. Did I raise my hand?
No, you typed in the question box of a question about Coaching Companion, and
oh, okay.
So I figured you could share that.
Okay. I just wondered, as we haven't, we've explored Coaching Companion in our program with our coaches, but we haven't stepped into that work, and we serve a great variety of staff over a large geographical area. And so it would be our advantage to be able to use this well, but we have a really wide variety of preparation at the site for the technology and the materials for people to actually videotape themselves. We have some that are school districts that have some contracts about when they can be videotaped, etc. So I just wondered, and I appreciated your suggestion about going to our preschool pre-K specialist who might have some sports for us, but the other part is how do you make sure that people have the technological capacity to do that, to videotape and send it in to you.
Karen, do you have anything you'd like to add there?
Well, I just would say hi, Mary, and that I think that I was thinking that when we go out on site, we see so many teachers who are doing video observations on devices, some of which I know are personal devices, some of which are purchased through the ECEAP contractor. So you would want to probably, work with your ECEAP director around, if there was any kind of a budget to ensure that there was technology available for teachers to be able to videotape themselves. I know a number of them are already videotaping children, and so how could that, whatever the devices are that they're using, be used to upload information to Coaching Companion if they're already uploading information into teaching strategies. And I know that some contractors have written grants to get some technology into the classrooms when they didn't have the funds themselves. So that would be another option that the ECEAP director could consider as well. Do other people have suggestions that they could just type into the chat box around or question box around, what the ECEAP contractor they work for has done to purchase or to get grants to get technology into the classrooms to make videotaping easier? And then while people do that, I just want to say I don't know that we have any suggestions, Holly, for the question that you brought up around using a strength-based approach and then how you identify something that needs to change in a classroom when the teacher isn't bringing it up on their own. And I just want you to know that I've taken note of that and that we'll definitely work on incorporating that kind of information into our the webinars next year, which doesn't help you right now, I know, but will be something I'm sure that you can look forward to.
And it looks like Holly did share in response to Mary's question about technology, Holly shared that their program purchased iPads for each team, which they used for Teaching Strategies Gold and for videotaping. They're also beginning to use Zoom at times for long-distance coaching. So, thank you, Holly, for sharing that. And it looks like Eileen shared just a resource available around Holly's concern about talking about a concern. In the Coaches Framework Training Notebook, there's a nice handout about spotlighting a concern behind the reflection and feedback tab. So thank you, Eileen, for sharing that.
So this is Karen, and as we've been out monitoring, we're seeing more and more classroom staff with agency purchase IT versus using their own. So I would really talk with Selena about what you all could do to move in that direction.
So Cheryl had shared that, again, a theme that we're seeing from several of you is that time with all of the other duties that she does, it's hard to get into the classrooms while children were there to observe their goals in action and to provide support for specific requests. So time has been a challenge for her. Emily had a comment responding to Holly that Emily really likes the initial rating, interpretation, and planning guide format from the Coach Framework training, and that it can be used for just about anything if you just change the title. So they also have a form called Spotlighting a Concern that can be helpful. Thank you, Emily. And Ethna, you had a question about strategies to support Gold Plus. And so, cannot hear you. So if there's more you wanted to share around that, feel free to type it into the question box. And thank you, everyone, for contributing. This has been a great discussion around challenges and resources and working towards solutions. So thank you. And moving forward with Ethna's question, I did want to share today on a past webinar, a coach had suggested, you know, is there any way to create a coach discussion board where coaches can come together in between webinars or as appropriate and discuss some topics, and Coaching Companion does provide that opportunity, and so I wanted to share that here. And specifically, this coach was asking for an opportunity to discuss strategies for helping staff with Gold Plus beyond the webinar that's provided, and then wanting to discuss coaching models and learn different models of coaching that are being used around the state. And so I wanted to show everyone where this coach discussion board lives. When you log into Coach Companion with your Merit account, this is the main page that you come to. You'll see the coach discussion board here in the red circle. You click on that, and that will take you to a large menu. I just highlighted these two topics, but there's a large menu of discussion topics that you can participate in. And so I did start discussion topics for both of these subjects. So feel free to log into Coaching Companion and start the discussion. We'd love to hear from you and love to see the different ideas that coaches are coming up with. And I believe some coaches have added to that already since this slide was created. So I know here it says 0 comments, but I believe there has been some input there. And then I also wanted to highlight the SQL training calendar. This can also be found in Coaching Companion. Over the past few months, several questions have come into the ECEAP inbox requesting information on upcoming class training or coach framework training. And this is where you can go to find this immediately without waiting for a response. So I wanted to be sure that coaches know they have access to this information directly through Coaching Companion. And when you click on the SQL training calendar, this is what it looks like. And you can scroll through month by month. You can click on the training, and it will give you the registration information and details. I don't see any questions in the question box. So we'll keep
Hey, Kelly,
moving.
this is Karen. And I just wanted to say that, you know, as we're working on really trying to have the discussion forum in Coaching Companion be as active as possible, Kelly will probably be sending out some prompts and email ticklers for people to hopefully have you set aside some time to be able to get into the Coaching Companion, because it was really a great forum for all of the coaches to be able to talk about the challenges that they're facing and to get suggestions from folks in the field or their other coaches in the field. And we just really want to try and take advantage of that. We've used other forums for the Family Moving Forward parent education training, and we've also used a forum for the Family Support Pilot, and we have found it invaluable. So we're stronger together as a community, and if we can have a place where we're sharing our troubles or our successes that go beyond the webinars. So this is great for us to be able to have this time in the webinar, and we are only together, I mean, when we're fully staffed, we're together once a month, and we haven't been fully staffed this year either, and so our webinars have been infrequent. And so we just want to make sure that we're doing our part to encourage all of you in using that forum, and so we'll be giving you some more prompts here in the coming months to really help to kickstart that. So thanks in advance for putting up with all of the tickler emails and for participating in the SQL forums.
So looking at the year and what we have covered, so this year we've really focused on numeracy and introducing just kind of a deeper dive into numeracy and how can we improve the math development for young children in ECEAP. And so November's webinar really focused on an introduction to numeracy. We looked at the learning pathways document from OSPI, and we looked at some numeracy prompts, prompting questions to ask when planning. And then in December, Julie Flores, a pre-K specialist, presented resources and coaching strategies using Teaching Strategies Gold. So really looking specifically at the math objectives in Gold and how coaches can support staff in enriching that area. In January, Region 10 TNTA staff presented information on High Five Mathematize and shared some resources there available on the ECLKC website. And in March, Soleil Boyd from UW SQL presented information with us on coaching for continuous quality improvement. And really we took a step back and looked at that overall, that overarching goal of coaching and continuous quality improvement.
Yeah, so really a lot of, I mean, we definitely this year in the webinars that we have provided have tried to give some concrete information from High Five Mathematize, from teaching strategies, from the learning pathways document that OSPI created. And we've also had these ongoing kind of overarching questions that have been embedded into the webinars as well. And that really, we really wanted to make sure that we had that in each webinar, because we know that just like Emily said, that if you give teachers a training and you give them some supplies, that's not necessarily going to make change happen for children's outcomes, or it's not going to inspire a teacher to really think about how and reflect on how they could fundamentally shift their teaching practices that's going to really inspire kids around numeracy or around anything that's in the STEM area. And we really shifted to have it be a numeracy focus this year because of Director Hunter's goal of 90% of children being ready for kindergarten, and because of our statewide TS Gold outcomes in the area of math. We ended up really deciding that that was a concrete area that we could focus on. And we know that the only way that sustainable change is going to happen with classroom staff is to make sure that you have the right framework or supports in place. And we haven't really shared this framework prior to this time together, we wanted to make sure, in any of the previous webinars, and we wanted to make sure that we shared it with you so you could sort of think about that in your planning moving forward. So this is a stage-based framework. And can you move to the next slide, please?
Mm-hmm.
So you see that there were the 4 areas with the arrows, and there are 3 common threads that exist across each of these stages, which are listed here, which include building implementation teams, which would be your planners, your people who are going to be making sure that you're planning and really thinking about what needs to be in place in order for whatever new training, so it doesn't have to be numeracy or STEM even, but what needs to be in place for that to be able to be successful? Who needs to be on board? What are the materials that are needed? Some of those prompting questions that we've asked in some of the other webinars. And then how are you going to create data and feedback loops, and then that whole piece around sustainable infrastructure. Next slide, please. And then this is the integrated stage-based conceptual framework. And this is based on research that effective implementation bridges the gap between science and practice. So we all know that there's this great theory. Actually, Jill, you really talked about it today with the Eckers and how that's all built on science and research, but if there's a disconnect between the why of it, then it can be really hard for staff to feel motivated to make those changes. So this framework helps with a little bit with that gap that can exist sometimes. This framework comes from an integrated stage-based framework for implementation of early childhood programs and systems. And I don't quite remember, Kelly, can you correct me? Is this research come out of OPRE? Oh, it actually looks like it's at the bottom. Yes, it does.
Yes, yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so we just wanted you to be able to know about this framework and to be able to check it out for yourselves. It sounds like a lot of you have already been doing some of this on your own, and knowing that a lot of the work that really we've been doing this year has been really in that exploration phase, giving you information, talking about things that are important to be thinking of, and then if you think about phasing this work out moving forward, what's going to need to be in place so that it's sustainable. And some of you have pretty involved intensive training systems and learning communities and feedback loops that you've created, and others don't. And so you can sort of see where your system lands when you take a look at this framework. And then I just wanted to share what we're thinking about for next year. So one of the things that we've started doing some planning around is to work better to partner with our partners at Sequel. And one way that we think that we can do that is to combine the 2 webinars. So some of you attend the Sequel webinars that they provide, some don't. And some have told us, I don't know which one to attend, and people don't feel like they have time to attend both. And so we sat down and talked with Sequel staff, and they were like, yeah, it would be great to combine it. So we're going to combine our webinars with them. They will likely start in September. And when we have information about the date and time for those webinars, we'll be sure to let you know as soon as we can. That has not been decided yet. And really what we're going to be focusing on next year is taking a deeper look at the problem-solving challenges in supporting classroom staff. And you all have, it's like, you were there in our conversations with Sequel, because a lot of the issues that you've brought up are the issues that we have said we need to be able to spend more time on and have there be more resources and ability to get support for coaches around more, the topics that sometimes maybe don't feel quite as concrete, right? So the topics around a long-term employee who's resistant to trying something new, or a newer teacher who's needing a lot of resources and maybe is feeling so overwhelmed by having to learn all the different parts of their job that, that idea of, what kind of coaching supports are going to end up being the most supportive for a newer teacher, those kinds of topics. We will definitely be planning on having lots of resources and discussion opportunities for those. So the other thing that we're going to be doing is that we're going to, so actually I think I need to back up just a little bit and say currently we are in the process of working with OSPI. As you know, OSPI created that Learning Pathways document that I find to be a really helpful document because it really maps out developmentally what children are ready for and then how it relates to the TS Gold assessment areas. And so we're in the process of working with them to adapt the numeracy modules that they created for P3, and really the people who we know that went to those trainings said that the trainings felt that they were a little bit more K3, maybe even 1-3 in some areas, and so we have been working with the developers of that training to create one that's going to have more of a preschool early learning focus. And those are currently still in development, and our goal is to have those completed this summer and then create 2 cohort groups of folks who would be leads for their ECEAP contractor who would come to the trainings, and just like with the OSPI trainings, they would be a series of 3 trainings. We're not sure if they're going to have the same topic areas, if they're going to be different topic areas at this point, but generally it's going to be based on that framework. And then once people have participated, meaning when I say people, once the participants or the leads for an ECEAP contractor have participated in those trainings, then they would go back to their ECEAP contractor staff and they would provide that numeracy training to classroom staff. So this would be a train the trainer model, just like it is with the OSPI numeracy modules. And then we will then work on creating a virtual online learning community to really have a very focused conversation around numeracy, how it's going implementing those trainings, and any challenges that are coming up for the trainers or for classroom staff as you are supporting classroom staff in implementing numeracy activities. We know that some people have already attended some of the numeracy trainings that OSPI provided, and we can work with you on that. So if you've, like Emily said, that they had staff who attended counting and cardinality already, so we'll be willing to work with you depending on what the format of the training is going to be, that you would maybe just attend 2 trainings, and so we'll be flexible around that, and we'll definitely, we want to include as many people who've received the full training series to participate in the online learning community as we can. So as we have more details, we will definitely be sharing those out with ECEAP directors and with all of you as well.
Great, thank you, Karen. We do have a question around the training. Deborah is asking, will all ECEAP contractors need to send a representative to this numeracy training?
No, this is optional. It's not a requirement. So this will be an optional training. We're wanting to give you a heads up about it now so that you can be thinking about who is maybe going to be the best person, or who would be a couple good people that you could send. And if you have more than one person, that of course is dependent on the size of your ECEAP contract and be thinking and planning for who would possibly be able to attend the trainings, and then who would be able to provide the trainings with the within your ECEAP contractor. Yeah, so this is a quality piece that we're offering, which is, you know, that piece, right? So there's that line, right, that you all are focused on of like, what's the basic requirement of what I have to do, and then what are the pieces that really are best practice and are going to really move the needle on quality. And this whole numeracy series really is about moving the needle on quality around numeracy.
Well, thanks, Karen. So at this time, we just want to open it up, and if there's any remaining questions that coaches have, we wanted to provide an opportunity. That looks like Angelica is asking, so this would be a training that us as coaches would attend, or who would attend?
Do you want to answer that, Kelly, or do you want me to?
Go ahead.
Okay, so this is something that you want to go back and talk with your ECEAP contractor about. There's all different kinds of structures out there in ECEAP, and so we can't say who is going to be the best person to attend this training. It would be whoever is a trainer within your ECEAP contract, and it would be whoever is whoever the director feels like that person has the time and capacity, and that it matches their job role in the best. So we really leave that up to the ECEAP director to make that decision. We shared this information on the ECEAP director's webinar yesterday, so directors do have information about this, and we wanted to make sure that you had this information as well, so that if you have interest in it, with, you know, continuing what you've already implemented, or to really begin to focus on this in a different way and implement it more intentionally, that you would be able to have this information so you could advocate for yourself as well.
Angelica says, perfect, that answers my question. So Deborah has a question about the Westside Early Achievers Summer Institute, and I was curious if registration has opened for that. Do you know anything about that, Karen?
The Early Achievers Summer Institute. So there's the Early Achiever Institute, I think that's what you're talking about, versus the WASA Summer Institute. So I don't know, you would want to contact SQL. You'd want to contact Melissa at SQL. Kelly, I'm sure you have her email memorized that you could maybe share out to the group. Yeah.
Yes. Let me, I believe it's mbrown26 at uw.edu. mbrown26 at uw.edu.
Yeah, and so since SQL is the agency that provides the Early Achiever Institutes, they're in charge of all of the scheduling. You'll get your most up-to-date information from them.
And I'm typing it into the chat box here for everybody. Oh, and it looks like Ella has just shared a registration link here. I can try and put it in the chat box.
Yeah, my suggestion, Kelly, is that you just email it out to the group after the. Okay. Because I can't see it very well it's not in a link. It's all
in the chat box. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's all typed out. So I would just send it in an email after the webinar so that everyone can see it. Okay. Thanks, Ella, so much for sharing that.
Yes, thank you, Ella. So just wanted to, let's see, and it looks like registration is not open yet for that institute. So it will open mid-May from the SQL site, is what Ella's sharing. So I don't see any other questions in the question box, so we will move forward. So just wanted to remind folks and any new coaches out there that we have the coaching toolkit on the DEL website, and you can follow the link here. I will be sending out a PDF of this webinar to coaches, and I will include the link that Ella shared as well. So just wanted everyone to know that. Who to contact if you have questions around coaching. For policy-related questions and technical assistance, you would want to go to the pre-K specialist assigned to your program. For WELS technical assistance, you would want to contact the QRIS at del.wa.gov. And for any coaching-related questions, feel free to contact me, Kelly DeBoer. And our next webinar will be planned for fall 2017, and that will be in partnership with Sequel. So thank you, everyone. We really appreciate the discussion today and appreciate you all sharing.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Have a great end to your school year if you do part day or full school day.